Welcome to your highly personalized, fully organic perspective simulation. By the time you have located this channel, there is a very high probability that you have over time unfortunately misallocated many of your skill and stat points. Because frankly, very few of the mainstream guides and FAQs for this game are any good whatsoever, and besides which, most players don't even want to bother with guides, unfortunately. But that's what we're here for today. I'm just going to offer a few simple tips and tricks for character optimization, so that within a scant handful of additional level ups, you will be able to become the mini-boss of your dreams. Unfortunately, it is probably too late for you to become a full and true boss, because you have to sign into a premium account with a mentorship program enabled to achieve full bosshood. But it's okay because most of you wouldn't want to learn 4 languages at the age of 5 anyways. So we'll just humbly shoot for the moon, since the stars are in all probability a bit too far away for now. There's always next incarnation. So the first obvious factor when considering how to build our characters is truly recognizing our own stats. Now, a lot of players have no idea what their own stats even are, because they've spent pretty much all of their skill points in the facade tree. Now, there's a very misguided notion floating around the meta right now that the truth doesn't matter as much as perception does, which is part of why it's become so popular to max facade and just ignore real stat progression. I've actually been asked by one player who considered this question to be philosophical: if everybody believes something, does that make it true? Now, obviously perception and reality are conceptually mutually exclusive, only occasionally colliding. So this is just an absurdly amusing little question. Anyhow, this idolization of perception has unfortunately led a lot of players so far into the facade skill tree that they have lost track of their true individuality, so don't make that same mistake. Often such players, when they do have to confront their reality and their insecurities, have an existential crisis. And existentialism isn't supposed to be something to have a crisis about. You're supposed to enjoy that sort of questioning thought process and observing the possibilities which arise from questions that you cannot answer. Anyhow, back to the point, the first factor towards building our ideal characters is recognizing our strengths and weaknesses. Once you recognize your high and low stats, then and only then, you should begin to decide what kind of mini-boss you want to be. Now, well, lost my place. There we are. Now, there is something to be said for having at least a decent foundation in all stats, because even the brightest intellect might seem rather silly if he can't open a jar of pickles without bashing the edge of the lid. But if you want to become a mini-boss, then it is ideal to prioritize particular stats and choose only a few skills which you value over others. And only you can decide what those skills may be. For instance, many of my personal favorite mini-bosses, they have prioritized Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube as their skill of choice. And after many thousands of hours spent over many years, they are rather competitive with people near the top 500 level, and it is great fun to compete against them and watch them compete. And, even a skill as seemingly obscure as this can translate into other facets of life. Because when you spend enough time to become an expert at anything, it helps you to analyze new things from a more streamlined and optimal thought process. However, the art of melee is not one which I would necessarily recommend to the faint-hearted. It's almost definitely better for you to choose something you are more personally familiar with. Now, as far as which stats to prioritize, and this is a big pro tip right here, there's one stat which is secretly broken compared to all the other stats, because it affects your overall stat growth, and that is your willpower stat. The higher your willpower stat, the more points you will get in other stats per time spent on them. So it is always important, no matter what kind of build you're going for. And there are many ways to amplify that stat to encourage future growth. Generally depriving yourself of unnecessary things which you desire, or forcing your body to work or study when you are feeling unmotivated. These are good, simple ways to level that stat up and make sure that you stay in control of your own directions and desires. And if you are truly committed, then such activities as meditation and fasting can also help quite a lot. As a final method, there are actually willpower-enhancing substances which will serve to test your resolve. And depending on your reaction to the substance, either increase or decrease your willpower stat permanently. So you had better be sure that you are ready for such things before diving into them. Anyhow, the government doesn't like those things, so we won't talk about them anymore because we don't like things that the government doesn't like. Last point I'd like to make is in regard to the dialogue options. This game actually has dynamic dialogue options, and it seems to me that very few people take full advantage of this fact. A lot of players a lot of invested players have kind of gone out of their way to artificially limit other players' dialogue options and create fear and paranoia about some very fascinating and wonderful side quests. Now, if a player accepts these artificial limitations on communication, they will never be able to access most of the content in the game, and this is very unfortunate. So it is very important to observe not just the standardized response options, but also whatsoever the extent of your imagination can come up with in any given moment. Because you never know what kinds of thoughts can be convoked and relationships can be made by being genuine. So yeah, that about covers the basics, I think. Recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, identifying your ideal character, prioritizing a few skills, prioritizing your willpower stat, and always being on the lookout for hidden dialogue options that unlock cool side quests. Anyone who follows all of these basic principles will be able to build their character into whatever mini-boss archetype their imagination so desires. So that's all for my quick and humble guide to human being. I do hope that this helps at least a few people steer towards better stat growth, because one of the toughest things about this game is that all the quests are timed, so when you miss experience, those stats are gone forever and donated to the God of the Abyss. And we all know the God of the Abyss is powerful enough without your stats on top of his. So make sure to take advantage of every worthwhile opportunity that comes your way. And with that, I'll leave you with my blessing and my hopes that you will find a future which is worthy of your true beauty.